Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. Let's just go over the altruism and irrationality identical comments that have come in today while I've been about. And after this video, I think I'll be doing some Immanuel Kant. That stuff's sure heavy. All right. Oh, let me start off by saying that there is a quote which I will now quote verbatim. This is from memory, but I guarantee it's verbatim. The questioner asks about psychological egoism. I don't remember exactly what his words were. And Ayn Rand said, and I quote, "The motivation for an action does not change really the nature of that action." End quote. Okay? That is in some sort of interview where there were different questioners asking her. There were different voices asking questions. And I don't know what the context of that was, if it was one of their classes or courses or what. But that's a quote from her. Now, I don't know why I have to quote her for that. The motivation of the action does not change the nature of the action. That's clear. That's obviously clear. An action has an objective nature, and whatever you think about it does not really change the nature of the action. Okay, so that's what she said to psychological egoism. That was her reply to the guy who said, "What's with psychological egoism?" But that was her reply. Okay, Ryan Howard says on Altruism and Irrationality 2 of 3, he says, "Irrationality is the meta-ethics of altruism. And since irrationality forms the base, it will render the virtues required for living impracticable within that moral system. Altruism by its nature will sacrifice virtue for duty to others." Very good. So is altruism not the absence or the negation of morality, of objective morality, what really truly is morality? Is altruism not the absence or negation of morality? Then by what stretch of what imagination would we call it a type of morality or a subcategory of morality or in the field of morality or ethics? It's not. Altruism is clearly an epistemological phenomenon. Altruism is an epistemological phenomenon. The epistemological phenomenon that is altruism is irrationality. The phenomenon which is altruism is irrationality. Okay? Sibo says, "Your error is in equivocating altruism and irrationality." That's where I've made my error. Which, fair enough. I'm not... This is... Okay, so I've put this to you guys. You guys are the objectosphere. Okay? I put it to you guys. And you guys come back at me and say, "Rand never said such things." What the hell are you doing? So now I've fact-checked it against you guys, because that's what I needed to do, was fact-check it and see if Rand or Peikoff... am I just repeating something that's in page 39, But apparently I'm not, because I fact-checked it, and you guys said that this is not the case, that that Rand and Peikoff have not... Nobody said this. That's what you guys say. You guys go further, though, and say that this is not proper. That's where my error is in equivocating them. Rand, quote, Sibo, now, Sibo 59, "Rand acknowledged the existence of irrational egoists such as Nietzsche and hedonists." Well, if Nietzsche was an irrational egoist, then he was irrational. If you're sacrificing people, then you believe in altruism. You just switch the sacrificer. New Intellectual gave a pretty good reply to this in the next video. We'll get to that. Hedonists. Rand acknowledged irrational egoists. Hedonists are irrational egoists. Okay, I'll do that. And are hedonists altruists? No. Are they? And yet, somehow they don't really, at the end of the day, act very different from most altruists, right? Altruists actually act hedonistically because they have to grab little bits of pleasure here and there, because every bit of pleasure is guilty. So altruists act like, you know, I'm going to have this beer or this coffee, I'm going to drink this coffee even though I shouldn't because, you know, it's against the church or whatever. So altruists end up being hedonistic. They have a hedonistic view of pleasure. Snatch, grab while you can. No such thing as real pleasure, right? Real pleasure is supposed to be self-sacrifice, give yourself up in the long run. Altruists are the hedonists because it's the irrational view of pleasure. Who views pleasure irrationally? Altruists. Who views pleasure irrationally? Hedonists. How do they act differently? They snatch as snatch can, right? Whatever pleasure they can get. Now, one of them feels guilty about the pleasure, and the other revels in the pleasure. But neither of them understand real pleasure, right? We would agree on that. So, in what sense are they essentially different? They are like the D type and the M type. Altruists and hedonists are like the D type and the M type. The hedonist is the D type toward pleasure, and the altruist is the M type attitude toward pleasure. Misintegrated around something. Pleasure, they're into pleasure though. I mean, they certainly like to have certain things that are pleasurable, these altruists. No, they feel guilty about it every step of the way. That's why they become hedonists. Okay, so I'm going over some interesting ground. You guys, some of you say I've run amok. Maybe I've taken a page of Kant, right? No, I'm saying that I can't find altruism in the world. I can only find irrational actions. That's what's got my tuft. Okay? All right. AIM says altruism and irrationality are not identical. I agree with you that all altruistic actions are irrational, but not all irrational actions are altruistic. I think I've done this sentence. Smashing my face with a hammer is irrational, but not altruistic. Is your definition of altruism the sacrifice of oneself for others? Okay, that's my sticking point. If it's the sacrifice of oneself for others, then someone's not an altruist when they damage themselves in some false belief that they're helping some others in some way. So no, I don't think that anyone has to benefit. I don't even think that there has to be an ostensive benefit. Like, for example, cutting the heart out of a human being. What did that accomplish? Supposedly some god somewhere made happy by it, right? Or they had this game of basketball that the Aztecs did, and the winning team was revered and the losing team was all killed and sacrificed. Who gains from that? Or ablutions, pouring whiskey on the ground, perfectly good wine, pour it on the ground, offering to the gods. Who gains from that? Who benefits from that? So, now, maybe you're saying that's not altruistic because you're trading with the gods or something like that? So, does somebody have to benefit for altruism to occur? Immanuel Kant said no, I have to take a cue from him. Okay? I have to go with Immanuel Kant because he's the leader. He's the world leader in altruism. And he says that any benefit that you get from an action destroys the moral value of that action. Not just a small benefit, but any benefit. It has no moral stature as an action if you benefit from it. Alright? So, not only does your action have to cost you and help somebody else, it cannot benefit you. It has to hurt you. Now, it can't leave you in an even state, right? It's either cost or benefit. So it's got to cost you. Moral actions come at a cost to you, the individual, according to Immanuel Kant. Okay? Now, does there have to be a beneficiary? Not necessarily. It just has to come at a cost to the actor. Right? Let's say somebody gave their last $2 to the church as tithing, or just feed the African poor people in Africa. Somalians are starving. They give their last $2. How many people around here would not say that that was a virtue for them to give up that $2 which they needed? That would be viewed as a virtue. Yeah, right? To give up your last $2. Now, let's even assume that that money then got stolen, and somebody's now driving a Cadillac because they stole this money. Okay? Who around here, all your neighbors and all these people around us in society, who among them is now going to blame the giver who gave that $2 and say that they do not get moral stature? They do maintain their moral stature for giving their $2, even if some thief stole it somewhere down the way. They get the moral credit. So nobody has to benefit. The only real requirement for altruism is that the actor has to be harmed. That's the only real thing going on in altruistic action, is the actor is damaged. Now you could say sometimes somebody benefits, right? When they killed the Jews in the Holocaust, some people who didn't have nice apartments suddenly had nice apartments. Somebody benefits once in a while, right? And the guy driving the Cadillac benefited from when he stole the money that was supposed to go to the starving people in Africa. Somebody sometimes benefits, right? Sometimes it's the person you meant to benefit, sometimes it's not. But what if nobody benefits? The problem is that's still altruistic, and it's still morally praiseworthy. To do things that are not beneficial to anybody, they're only harmful to the actor. So moral stature is given to harming the actor. Okay? That's altruism. Now what is that? Is that an ethical theory? No, that's the negation of ethics. That's an anti-concept. There is no moral concept of altruism. You see, we're chewing this through and we cannot find altruism. Now I asked you guys, I did a damn video, I said, give me some examples of altruism. What do we have here? Alright, let's keep going, because this is actually 2 of 3, and I think we're up to 5 of 4 now, or something like that. Alright. 9.9 says, altruism does not mean self-destructive. It specifies other directed action. Now I've really gone over this. In fact, I replied to it and I did a video reply, so I can't go over this. Okay. And then Klostik Nick did his. Alright. Now, let's go to part 3. Ladies and Chandler. No, I did his comment, right? This makes sense to me. I like the example. I did his. Alright. A day ago. SIBO, 9 hours ago. Alright, I replied to this. I haven't replied to it on video yet. Hell, maybe I did. Let me read real quick here. Why is that invalid? Okay. Right, so we got through that. Alright, I better go to the next one. Altruism 3 of 3. So we're going to go to 4 of 3. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, SIBO. Here's the one I was going to get to. SIBO says, another thought. You're saying both that altruism is an unreal concept that doesn't exist in reality, and that altruism has an identity, namely irrationality. It seems to me you have to choose one or the other. Alright, I'll choose. I am saying that altruism is an unreal concept that doesn't exist in reality. That I'm saying. Or that I can't find it, anyway. I can't find a reference. I can't find what it refers to. I can only find irrational actions where somebody says altruism. Okay? So I'm saying altruism's unreal. It doesn't exist. and altruism has an identity, namely irrationality. See, so I'm not saying that some phenomenon that we call altruism doesn't exist. I'm saying that we do damage to our understanding of the world by using the word altruism. I'm saying that we would be better off to replace it with the word irrationality. Okay? You're making a huge departure from Rand here. You're accusing her of making massive use of an anti-concept. Pretty silly of her, huh? No, I think that if you go through Ayn Rand's writings and just take out the word altruism and put in the word irrationality, I think everything would go fine. But he continues, we all agree that altruism is irrational, but the opposite is not true. Irrationality is not altruism. But then you would have to find an instant... what does it mean for all altruism to be irrational? All of them. Every single one. What does that mean? That means that all altruistic action is irrational. So replace the word altruism or irrational with the word altruism, that's what my question is. My quandary right now is, if you went through and replaced the word altruism with the word irrational, what meaning would be lost? I think a lot of clarifications would come, but what meaning would be lost? See? As Rand said, and I sourced in your last video, Nietzsche was both irrational and non-altruistic. Alright, well, Rand said that Nietzsche was non-altruistic, okay, in the sense that he rejected altruism for some form of bogus egoism. She doesn't say it was legitimate egoism, alright? And it's just sacrifice all the same. It's sacrificing someone else to you instead of you to somebody else. So that gives me no qualms. He's going to end up in the same mess. But what you're saying there, okay, I guess, is that, so here's a guy who acts irrationally and not in an altruistic way, and Ayn Rand says that he's not altruistic. So that would give my theory a problem. But I would simply point out that if someone acted in consistence with Nietzsche's ideas of his irrational ideas, his ideas of sacrificing, you would simply end up acting irrationally. That's really what you would end up with at the end of the day. So there really isn't any space, not even I have paint all over my hands, I'm sorry about that. There really isn't any space between Nietzsche sacrificing others to himself and other people sacrificing themselves to everybody else. There really isn't any difference between those activities. And Rand did not recognize Nietzsche as being, completely separate from world history and a giant among men and anything like that. No, he just had inspiring poetry. That's all. Okay, altruism is different from irrationality. Now back to SIBO. Altruism is different from irrationality. 1, because there are non-altruistic instances of irrationality, such as sacrificing others to yourself or being a hedonist. Alright, well, I think I've addressed those at the beginning. And 2, because one describes a matter of ethics, the other describes a matter of epistemology. Now you might have some grounds there, but I think I'm on more solid ground by saying that altruism is an anti-ethical concept. Okay, when you say altruism, I say, oh, you mean the absence or negation of ethics? You see? So, one describes a matter of ethics, he says. Which one? Altruism? No, it does not. It negates ethics. It's a blanket statement for the destruction of ethics. The other describes a matter of epistemology. Yes, which that matter of epistemology is a blanket negation of ethics. So one is a blanket negation of ethics, the other is a blanket negation of ethics. Altruism is a blanket negation of ethics. Irrationality is the absence of ethics. I cannot find altruism. I can only find irrational actions. I can't find people benefiting. I can only find people being destroyed. I look at Soviet Russia, I look at Nazi Germany, I look at the welfare state, I cannot find a beneficiary. I only find victims. Now if that's altruism, irrational self-destruction, how is that different from irrationality as such? I can't find it. Okay. Let's see if I've replied to that. Alright, I did reply to that, and it's gone on a bit. 6 hours ago. Okay, so I haven't seen all these replies. Oligarch Slayer says, I always took Nietzsche to be an altruist who sacrificed others to himself. Not the best example to make your point. Go read Nine's posts. He showed instances of irrational, non-altruistic behavior. Nines is a she. Nines showed instances of irrational, non-altruistic behavior. I think we went over those. I didn't find them. Oligarch Slayer says, I always took Nietzsche to be an Oh, right, did that. Sibo replies to Oligarch Slayer. That's not altruism, which requires sacrificing one's self to others. So Sibo makes the argument that altruism is to sacrifice yourself to others. Nietzsche was plainly against this. Rand self-acknowledged Nietzsche as an irrational egoist, set out against altruism. Yeah, he was mad against altruism. Isn't that sad that he didn't reject it in any way at all? Isn't that sad? He just played little mind games around it, but he didn't really reject it. He wrote poetry that criticized it, but he really didn't reject it. He accepted altruism. He just said, I don't have any respect for these people. Gather the sacrifices. Nietzsche's rebellion, this is quoting Rand now. Nietzsche's rebellion against altruism consisted of replacing the sacrifice of oneself to others by the sacrifice of others to oneself. Now, is that a rebellion against altruism? No. That is the reversal and acceptance of altruism. He says, yes, let's be altruistic. I will gather the sacrifices. So that's all that is. Oligarch Slayer Rand, okay, Sibo says to Oligarch Slayer, Rand saw Nietzschean egoism as a product of altruism, but in that it was an inversion to its direct opposite, the other side of the altruist coin, I believe she called it. Right? It's just the altruist coin flipped, right? Oligarch Slayer says to Sibo, I can think of a case where someone would say the sky is green when in fact it is blue. That's irrational, but it's not altruistic. Okay. So if you went around saying that the sky was blue, or the sky was green when in fact it's blue, you would be irrational, but you would not be behaving like an altruist. That's pretty good. All right. So I guess I better give up on this shit, huh? Could I prove it by saying that someone could say that lie, that the sky is green, as an altruist? An altruist could do it and be consistent? I guess that wouldn't prove my point then, would it? So Oligarch Slayer has done it. He has given me an instance of an action that is irrational but not altruistic. Now, what does altruism mean? So that is, now maybe what I need is a moral fact. Is that what I need? Because stating the color of the sky seems to be worming your way out of this challenge there, Oligarch Slayer. Yeah, maybe I need to strengthen my, I've asked you for an irrational action that's not altruistic. Could I ask you instead, because altruism concerns the realm of ethics, could I ask you now instead for an irrational moral action that fails to be altruistic? No, I can't, because that would make my case too strong, wouldn't it? And you can't do it, can you? You can't find an irrational moral action that can't be done by an altruist. They're all done by altruists, or could be. An altruist could conceivably, consistently take any irrational moral action. Okay? Now, if you want to say you've proven my point wrong by saying the sky is green when it in fact is blue, and that's irrational but not altruistic, if you want to say you've won at this point, that's fine. But now I'm just upping my game and I'm just asking for a morally irrational action, or an irrational action in the realm of ethics, because calling the sky green, to be fair, is not an ethical claim. I submit. I submit to the fair-mindedness of the audience. Now then, while I've been doing this, I could have done some Kant. You know, it might be better that we iron out some new thought in objectivism than that we go run over Kant, who we already know is a disaster. So it's probably okay that we're doing this, okay? By the way, I think I got a new Patron today. Welcome aboard. Whoever's the new Patron, thank you very much. I can't be bothered to look it up right now. Stephen. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us. Okay. Let's see. I can think of a case. Even if Nietzsche was an altruist, doesn't mean that every action Nietzsche would approve is so. Okay. Also. Well, alright, give me an example. Also, one doesn't need to be altruist to approve or make egoist Nietzschean action that is irrational. One doesn't need to be an altruist to approve or make egoist Nietzschean action that is irrational. So you could be against altruism and behave in an irrational Nietzschean manner. Nick, I do not agree. I call this guy Nick. I do not think that that's true. Okay? You'd have to give me an example of that. You'd have to give me an illustration of what you're meaning, because I can't think of an example of that. Okay? Now I'm just messing with you because you're not going to be able to find such an example. But Oligarch Slayer says, I like this example as it emphasizes the Sibo says, to Oligarch Slayer, I reckon about the sky is blue stuff. I like this example as it emphasizes the categorical difference between altruism and irrationality, i.e. ethics versus epistemology. Yeah, irrationality is an ethical claim. Altruism is supposedly a moral theory or concept or idea, right? So that's what I'm getting to. And Oligarch Slayer and Sibo are winking at each other. Now, guys. Yes, true. Altruism is an ethical concept. Irrationality is an epistemological concept. True. Now, is altruism a concept at all? If not, then then we need to understand the definition of altruism to be self-destructive irrationality. Okay? Now, if that's the definition, I'm wondering why we can't replace it with the word irrationality. I'm wondering what function we get out of the word altruism. What does it refer to that irrationality fails to refer to? What extra thing is being named other than moral belief? Other than moral belief. And as Ayn Rand said, the motivation of an action doesn't change the nature of the action. So other than the moral belief that it shows, what's the difference between altruism and irrationality? Zero. Okay, what does altruism refer to then? It refers to motivation. Refers to motivating irrationality. The motivation for irrationality, right? Okay. Altruism refers to a motivation of irrationality in morality, in ethics. Okay. Ed Powell says, altruism is a concept from ethics. Very good. I love how I can go along as an objectivist doing this very rational stuff, and then I go to a comment from an objectivist, and it's full of good, chunky, rational stuff. There's nothing better than objectivists discussing stuff. I swear to God, there's nothing better. Especially good, juicy stuff. Okay? He says, altruism is a concept from ethics, meaning that the beneficiary of any action is someone other than the actor. Ed Powell. I agree with you, except I want to challenge the idea of there being a beneficiary, which I cannot find. Who was the beneficiary in all the destruction and sacrifice in Soviet Russia and Nazi Germany? So I don't believe there's a beneficiary. I believe everybody gets damaged in an altruist situation. Everyone is worse off than they would have been if they would have acted rationally. Everyone is damaged, okay? So for you to say the beneficiary is very strange. When people went from $100 to $90 in the group, and you start talking about who benefited, I say, what do you mean? They're all poorer. The whole group's poorer. There's less to spread around, right? So I don't know. I can't find the beneficiary when people are being irrational and destroying themselves and others. Okay. So he continues. Irrationality is a concept from epistemology that says that the path to knowledge is through the means other than reason. Sense, perception, conception, deduction, with the actual method unspecified. Pure altruism, in the Comtean sense, Comtean, T-I-A-N? He was T-E, right? But maybe we can do that. Okay, pure altruism in the Comtean sense has never been practiced anywhere, though we might call casual altruism or what we might call casual altruism or self-sacrifice has been practiced everywhere. True. Okay, so Ed's making my point for me here. True altruism would just be you just kill yourself immediately, right? True. Casual altruism is an ethical theory that is caused by either a mistake or irrationality. Okay, that's not my case. This is Ed Powell making that. The mistake would be not seeing that there is an alternative to sacrificing yourself to others or sacrificing others to yourself. Okay, so you just accept sacrifice as necessary, and then you become a casual, or you could slip down this slope of becoming a casual altruist. Oh yes, altruism, yes. For all of human history until Rand, no one saw that there was a third choice other than these two. That lack of discovery is not irrationalism, any more than thinking light traveled through an ether was irrational. I'm afraid light does travel through an ether, guys. Okay. Now, in 2019, when we know and have had it proven to us beyond a shadow of a doubt for anyone to have read Rand and still insist on self-sacrifice rather than a non-sacrificial society would be irrationalism or evasion, but to claim Socrates or Aristotle or Ben Franklin or anyone else in history who advocated sacrificing oneself to others rather than others to oneself was irrational for doing so drops the context of knowledge that existed at the time. Okay, that's pretty juicy. Good job, Ed. Good job. You stepped up to bat with that thought. All right, let me check this out here. If we had less knowledge, put ourselves where Aristotle is or Benjamin Franklin. Are they behaving irrationally? All right. So I'm going to say that, for example, Aristotle supporting slavery was the best idea he could come up with at the time, so we can't blame him for it, right? Why wasn't he able to conceive of anything else? Because it was before the Industrial Revolution. Ayn Rand herself said that she had to live after the Industrial Revolution to see the fact that thinking, just thought, radically transforms human life and human well-being. That is, according to Ayn Rand in her discussions with Peikoff, that is the key to unlocking her philosophy. Oh boy, am I getting... Oh, I'm past time on this. I can't believe we've gone this long. Ed Powell, I'm going to have to do another video on this stuff. We haven't even got to 5 of 3. We're still on 4 of 3. Alright, this is juicy. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm enjoying it because I want to get this ironed out. And if ironing it out simply means chewing it until I really grasp it, that's fine. Because some of you are learning some stuff. Admit it, right? Chandler says now I can make this leap to irrationality and altruism being the same thing. All right, I gotta stop.